Hello, I'm Bob the Booker and welcome to my channel. And today I just wanted to talk about a long list. We have a long list now for the International Booker Prize for 2025. And I'm really excited about this list for several reasons, which I'll go into. But I think I know that I'm sort of behind the curve on this. I have been sort of traveling a bit with work for the last couple of days. And I suddenly realized at one point when they announced the long list, when the long list was going to be announced, and I realized that I would be traveling all of that day, and then I'd be sort of in and out of meetings and traveling bits most of the next day. And so I thought, I don't know when I'm ever going to talk about this, but here we are. Here's me talking about the International Booker Prize long list. And I've seen a few people already react to it in really great ways, and I'm really keen to get stuck into this list, not only to talk about it, but also to read these books, which sound fantastic. So let's get talking about a few of the main talking points, I think, that are there from this. First of all, I guess the question is normally what's been included and what's not been included. And I think the big surprise in many ways for two of the previous winners and two Nobel Prize winners as well at that, so Han Kang and Olga Tokarczuk. And it's interesting that neither of them has made this list. But I also think in some ways there's something quite refreshing sometimes about a few big names not being in this. And actually I think there was something pointed out that none of these authors has been longlisted before. So this is an entirely new list in that respect of authors, which I think is quite exciting. You don't often get this, and particularly when it comes with a few other things around this list, which is that a large number of this list are from independent presses, which is so exciting. I love an indie press, and I think they often are able to really champion some exciting and wild voices that you don't otherwise find. And typically as well, translated fiction will come often through indie presses as well, because it's a risk anyway, and it's an added risk being a translated piece of writing, and so therefore, why not take an even bigger chance? And so I kind of enjoy that we've actually got a list that is so unexpected in many ways. I think there are a few books here that many people were thought that we might see, like Eurotrash and Solenoid, but there are a few others that I think really have wonderfully caught me by surprise, and I'm very, very excited to check out. So that's a bit in terms of what has been included, and this is quite a broad set of writing, although I think geographically, I think we're still very much focused on Europe and a bit of South America, if I'm right. I might be missing, I think there's also a Middle Eastern author in here as well. But that is it's still exciting to see so many books that are kind of from all over the place. But this does, there is a relatively small pool geographically, but I also think is quite exciting for what these books are saying, and I'll talk about those in a moment. One personal sort of surprise for me, and a book I'd have loved to have seen on this, is Mammoth by Eva Baltazar, translated by Julia Sanchez. And I thought this was exceptional. It's one of my favourite books of last year. And I'm a little sad it's not there, but at the same time, I'm so glad that we have all these weird and wonderful books on it as well. So those are those from the big name exclusions or inclusions, but let's go on to talk a little bit more about some of the other things about these books. Another thing that's really noticeable about this list is the length of these books. It's really funny that Hiromi Kawakami's book Under the Eye of the Big Bird is one of the longer books on this list, and it's still just under 300 pages. And it's quite wild. I mean, Solenoid is a much bigger book, and then it's, I think, Under the Eye of the Big Bird, and then most of these books are quite short. There are quite a few that are under 200 pages, or kind of somewhere between 200 and 250 pages. And obviously that doesn't dictate a quality of the book, or in either way. But I do love a really slim book that just gets to the heart of its thesis and is so able to play around with things because of the short space it's got. There's something really powerful about that, I think, and kind of also why I loved Mammoth by Eva Baltazar, for just being able to do this, for just to crystallize all of the thoughts of what the author was going for into this short package. And actually, I am really excited about these books. I think these sound fantastic, just for the sheer range of topics that they're talking about. But also, a short book often can be such a wild, experimental thing. Particularly on this, the one that I'm really excited about reading is On the Calculation of Volume by Solveig Balla. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing that name. I've seen a lot of people getting very excited about this book. It's one of several, um, I think it's like a multi-volume series. And so there are many of these books to come, I think, translated from Danish. And I'm really keen because I've heard that these are just exceptional, that these are really interesting books about memory and almost thought experiments in and of themselves in this sort of magnum opus style of having several books that convey this whole sort of thesis. So I'm really excited for this. It's not out yet. That's the only one that I don't think I'm going to be able to get my hands on for a little bit. I sort of ages ago kind of subscribed to Tilted Axis and had as a result had a copy of this. So this is the only one I physically own. I think from the list. I've been very lucky with advanced copies of books that I applied for ages ago and haven't really read, including Small Boat and Under the Eye of the Big Bird. So I'm very excited to get in and sort of stuck in with those. I've read one, which is Solenoid, which is fortunately, the longer one. So this might mean that this is a, slightly easier list to really fully get through. Not like it's a race, but it's quite fun to be able to feel like you're making progress in a list so that you've got more chance to put the books up up against each other to work out what they're all about. From what I'm seeing from this list, I'm really excited by what this says about the judges, because Anton Her, fantastic author and translator, Max Porter, whose books I adore, Caleb Femi, whose poetry I adore, Beth Orton, whose singing I love, and then who else? I feel like I'm missing a judge here. But that is really exciting. Those are 4 people who I really am excited about for this. Sorry, Sana Goyal, sorry, another author who I have to admit I don't know their work, but I will try and check this out. But I think this is a really exciting set of books, and in some ways makes sense that someone like Max Porter or Anton Her are part of this, or Caleb Femi, all writers who I really admire for their love of language, but their love of playfulness and looking for the unexpected. And this list feels like the culmination of that for me. These appear to be well-told stories from what I understand about what they're about, but they all have an edge. There's a thing that they're going for that isn't straightforward. It's not and this is, I think, what's most exciting, both about indie presses and about the sort of translated fiction, particularly in the international booker. You've got a lot of books that are weird and wonderful and wild and do these experimental, thoughtful things. And this list looks like that, and I'm very, very excited for it. This, I think, will be a really fantastic year. I say without really knowing a great deal about some of them, but I think this sounds fantastic. I'm particularly keen on the Book of Disappearance, because from the bits I've read about what it's about, it's a sort of thought experiment about what would happen if essentially Palestinian people ceased to exist entirely. And obviously there's a political edge to what that might be talking about. But the book also, in framing that thought experiment, just seems like such a fantastic idea of how you can conceptualize geopolitics in literature. And particularly, I think, based on what some of the other books are, sometimes slightly wilder, like Eurotrash, which seems like this slight romp, but also with a clear message and idea. You've got something like On the Calculation of Volume that seems to have a real thesis in mind for what it's going for. And you've got a book as well, I should mention, like On a Woman's Madness, that from what I've read was published over 40 years ago originally, in its original, I think, Dutch. Yeah, and so there's something about revisiting a book that's been out for so long now in a prize like this that I think is so fantastic and so interesting. How will a book from so long ago stack up against the book that was published in its original language 2 years ago? And what does that look like? And I'm really, really excited for this. So I suppose the next point on this will be my reading plans around this. I am in the middle of various other book prizes, as will probably surprise nobody. I'm finishing off the Climate Fiction Prize Longlist. Almost there. Reading some of the Republic of Consciousness Longlist, which I'm loving, and I'm hoping to read a few other books here and there. I've also got some exciting news that I'll eventually talk about that involves some other reading, but I'll talk about when I can. But the thing that I think is really exciting about this is these books look fantastic, and I'm really keen to get into reading them and to talking about them. All things going well, I will try to do what I've done in previous years, which is to read all of the long list and do solo reviews of the books. Um, because I really like being able to do that, and then having a sort of video where I talk about all 13 together and what it says about the long list as a whole. I might be slowed down by the fact that the Solveig Bala book isn't out until April, at least in the UK, but I'm really excited to talk a bit more about these. I'd also really love to hear your thoughts on any of these books that you're particularly excited for. And please bear with me, I'm slowly still re-emerging back into doing booktube stuff properly. Reading and booktube more generally have been a bit slower this year than I'd like for various life reasons, but I am very excited that this is a little shock to the system to remember just what I love about some of these things. So with that in mind, I'm going to get reading some of these. I'll be talking a bit more about these soon, so you'll hear a lot more Booker, as if there wasn't enough Booker on this channel, and we'll get talking with those. But take care and speak to you all very, very soon. Bye bye.